Welcome. Today we are going to test different anti-tank infantry units in Company Heroes 3. I assume that majority of you guys got the feeling of which infantry units are good in fighting the vehicles, but how good are they when we do a comparison? Which of these units are strong and which are weak and why? This is what we are going to do, and we will decide which infantry unit is the best in dealing with the armor. Also, this is a continuation of our infantry comparison video where we did the comparison which are the best infantry units per faction against infantry in general. You should check that video as well by clicking in a top right corner or in a description. So to make it clear, this video is purely testing on which infantry is the best in dealing with the tanks alone. We will touch on other aspects like cost and usefulness of unit in general, but our main testing aspect is clear. We will also shortly present rules before we start. Rule number 1, we are including only units which can upgrade or already have anti-tank weapons. So anti-tank grenades and packages like Panzerfaust are not included in the testing. Rule number 2, we will have two categories like before. Categories are when infantry is fighting against armor from no cover and from the cover. Rule number 3, we are going to present raw numbers and statistics of every unit, and also we are going to include results of field testing as well. And last, rule number 4 is, this is tier list of infantry units fighting against armored tanks, not light vehicles. First unit which we are going to check is Jäger Squad from Wehrmacht. So this unit costs 320 manpower to make, and it is a 5-man squad. It has a total of 550 HP when upgraded, so meaning they get Bet 1 from the tier building. The upgrade cost for Jägers to get the Panzer Shrek is 90 ammo. The damage of Shrek is 160, so we will have damage when we penetrate and damage, average damage if we do not, for example, maybe penetrate, as we will discuss later on. In both cases, the damage for Jäger Squad is 160, and they have a 5-second reload time. On field testing, Jäger Infantry Squad was proven as a highly lethal anti-tank infantry unit. So they get one Panzer Shrek when they get upgraded, and it is a high penetration anti-tank weapon. So in almost 90% of the cases you will be able to penetrate the front of the armor. When tested against Sherman medium tank, without cover, you win almost every time. Actually, not almost, but every time you will win. While when you're fighting from the cover, you will win while taking almost no damage or almost no losses in regards to your infantrymen. So Jäger, meaning hunters on German, is a really capable AT infantry unit you can get. Second unit which we are going to cover is Panzer Jagger Squad from DAK. And it is a joke of a name. We can remove Panzer or even Jaeger from the name and just leave a squad, because they are not a really great AT infantry unit. The manpower cost of this unit is 275. It is a 4-man squad, and it has 340 HP in total for the unit. And this is the lowest amount of HP out of any anti-tank infantry in the game. With regards to upgrade costs, it is 0, since the upgrade for the unit is actually to deal with infantry, not the armor. Now, speaking about the damage, if you manage to successfully penetrate the armor, the maximum damage it can do is 110, while the average damage against armor when we are not penetrating is 17 points. And it has 5-second reload time. Speaking about the field expectations and the field performance of Panzer Jagger Squad, it is not good. Before we start, I have to tell that their AT guns, which they have a really low penetration, and they penetrate almost every third shot against heavily armored or medium armored units. So during the testing, if they faced Sherman medium tank in the open, they would always lose against the Sherman, and Sherman would be left with almost 90% HP intact, so a really bad performance. Speaking about Panzer Jagger squad engaging armored tank from the cover, they would also lose. However, around 50% of HP would be left for the Sherman. So again, not a great performance from Panzer Jagger squad. We are now moving to US Forces faction, and first anti-tank infantry which we are going to check is a Bazzoka squad. So Bazzoka squad is the cheapest one to get. It costs 250 manpower to get. It is a 4-man squad with 400 HP per unit. The upgrades are 0 since they already come with 2 bazookas, and the damage which they deal is 120 if you manage to penetrate. Same like with Panzer Jagger with Shreks, they have only 1 flat damage, and this is 120 if you manage to penetrate. The reload time for Bazzoka squad is around 5.5 seconds, almost 6 seconds reload. Field performance of Bazzoka squad is predictable but also surprising at the same time. Bazookas have lower penetration than Panzer Shrek, and they will not penetrate every shot. What the field fight and field testing showed is that Bazzoka squad will lose against medium tank in the open, and the tank will be left with around 50% HP. While when you are fighting from the cover, they will lose again. However, this time the squad or the medium tank will be left with around 10% HP, so just barely to win. So basically, if you manage to penetrate 1 more additional time rather than bouncing 2 to 3 times when fighting, you might get the tank. So it's basically it depends on the RNG. Next in line for testing are the paratroopers. So these beautiful chunky boys, they cost 320 manpower to make. They are a 6-man squad with 720 HP. This is the highest amount of HP you can get, and 1 more unit has the same amount of HP as well. The upgrade cost for paratroopers to get the bazookas is 37 ammo, which is so low. Damage for the paratroopers is same like for the Bazzoka squad, which we covered. It is 120 points if you manage to penetrate the armor. They have also 5.5 and up to 6 damage reload per shot. Speaking about field performance for paratroopers, if they are fighting against medium armor in the open, they would lose, and tank would be left with barely 10% HP left. And this is same like with the Bazzoka squad. It is basically the RNG. If you manage to penetrate 1 additional volley from the bazookas, you would kill the tank and you would survive. But it is really the bad armor penetration of Bazzoka which is holding back the paratroopers. Speaking about fighting the armor from the cover, they would win always, and they would be left with around 30% of the squad in the unit. So basically, from the cover, they are a really and serious damage to the armor. Last US Forces AT infantry unit which we are going to check is SSF Commando Squad, and it costs 440 manpower to field, and it is the most expensive unit, anti-tank infantry unit you can get. It comes with a 6-man squad and it has 630 HP. They don't have any upgrade costs, and as you can switch between LMG and Bazzoka squad as you please during the fight. That is one of their special abilities. Since they have bazookas like paratroopers and Bazzoka squad, damage stays the same, 120 points if you can penetrate, and reload is around 5.5 seconds. Now, field performance of SSF Commando Squad is similar to Paratroopers, but here we can see and we can detect that around 90 HP less than Paratroopers did left around 5% difference when fighting against armor. So if you are fighting against medium armor on the open field, you would lose and armor would be left with around 15% HP. While if we are fighting from the cover, you would have similar or almost the same result as the Paratroopers, where you would always win and you would be left with around 30% of the manpower strength of the unit. Now we are going to check the British anti-tank infantry squads. We have two, and first one which we are going to check are the foot guards. So the foot guards cost 400 manpower to make. They are a 6-man squad with 720 HP per unit. So together with the Paratroopers, they are the most chunkiest unit, the most beefy one in the game with regards to anti-tank infantry. They don't have any upgrades, so it's a 0, and damage, since they are using bazookas, is same like with all of the other allied units, meaning 120 if you manage to penetrate. They have around 5-second reload time. Now, speaking about the field performance of foot guards, so it is the same story again like with rest of the units from allied faction which are using the bazookas. In the open field against medium tanks you would lose, and tank would be left with around 20 to up to 25% of HP, which is lower than what it would be left if the US forces, US anti-tank infantry would fight. Speaking about the cover, same like with the SSF and Paratroopers, you would win and you would be left with around 30% manpower left in the unit. One important thing to say is that the foot guards have ability which can stun the tank. However, big problem is that every second volley from Bazooka Squad might basically be shrugged off by the armor, meaning even if you manage to stun the tank, by the time you reload and fire the next volley it will probably miss, or it will just bounce off, meaning that you basically just got a regular shot like you would. So this ability is best used if you can flank the tank, you can stun him there, and then that will give you enough time to do full penetrating shot and you will win 100%. Last, but not sure is it the least, we will see, is Infantry Section Squad from British Forces when upgraded with Boy's anti-tank gun. So this infantry unit costs 260 manpower to make. It is a 5-man squad with 475 HP. And upgrade cost for infantry section to get Boy's gun is 50 ammo. Now, speaking about the damage the Boy's gun will do is same like with the Panzer Jagger squad. If you manage to penetrate the armor, you will do 110 damage. If you do not penetrate, on average you will do 17 damage because of the AoE of the gun which you are using. Reload time for infantry section is 5 seconds. Now about the field testing of infantry section. So same like with the Panzer Jagger squad, the anti-tank guns have a really low penetration. And yes, the main strength of infantry section is you will have them in mass, and we will speak about it now when we do the final rankings. If you have them in mass and they can do some damage, but if you have 1 or even 2 infantry section, and in this particular case we are having 1-on-1 case, they are really bad performer against vehicles. So if they face medium tank in the open, they would always lose, and tank would be left with around 90% HP, same like with the Panzer Jagger squad from DAK. If they are fighting against armor from the cover, again, same like with Panzer Jagger DAK squad, which has anti-tank rifles, the infantry section will lose and tank will be left with around 50% HP. Okay, so we are now going to make a final definitive list, rank list, of all of the anti-tank infantry units in Company of Heroes 3. And how we are going to rank these units is based on these three factors, these three categories in the field testing performance. So 60% of the mark will be how well infantry unit behaved and how well it passed fighting against the armor. 20% of the mark will be how good these units are in regards to facing other units, so how versatile they can be even with the anti-tank upgrade or with the anti-tank weapons. And last 20% of the marking will basically be the costs and the upgrade costs of these units. So with that in mind, S tier and only S tier unit which we are going to have is the Jaeger infantry, Jaeger squads from Wehrmacht. So these guys alone will win every single time against every tank, and the value of Jaeger is actually the costs of Jaeger are in a mid level, so they are not the most expensive one, they are not the cheapest one, but with regards to performance they will outclass any unit. And one Jaeger with Panzer is equivalent to 3 infantry sections, and by the costs it's almost 3 times as less as infantry section, 3 infantry sections in comparison. Now moving to the A tier, and here on the A tier we have Paratroopers, SSF, commandos and foot guards. So these guys are in A tier because they are chunky, they have a lot of HP, actually they have the highest values in regards to HP. They are on the upper scale of the cost, however their performance on the field is also greater than other units which we have on this tier list. And for example, one paratrooper or one SSF foot guard as well are the equivalent like 2 infantry sections on the field in performance against armored vehicles. So I'm gonna put them in the A tier just because presence of these infantry units is like 2 infantry sections, and they are also capable of fighting other infantry units on the field because they have 6-man squads and they have a lot of HP as well. So just by default they are tanky enough that they can stay on the field and fight. Now B tier, we have infantry section and bazookas. So why are these guys here? And the reason is simple. Bazookas are better than infantry sections when fighting against vehicles, but they're awful when fighting against other infantry units and doing anything else in the game. While on the other hand, infantry sections are good and decent backbone of infantry fighting force when fighting everything else besides the armor. And when they're fighting armor alone, they are not that great, and you need to have them in mass. You need to have 3 to 4 infantry section in order to start feeling that power when it comes to fighting against the armored vehicles. We are not going to compare this with the light vehicles. If you're going to do with the light vehicles, then the tier list would be completely different. So this is basically anti-tank tier list. So for that regards, we are going to put infantry section and bazooka squads in B tier, just because let's be frank, bazookas are better when fighting against the vehicles, and one bazooka squad is almost like 2 infantry sections, and we cannot compare the price of one bazooka squad against 2 infantry sections, almost 2 infantry sections on the field. And last are the Panzer Jaggers, the joke infantry. They are the cheapest one. But I got the feeling that they are the easiest ones to kill. I couldn't put them on the same level like infantry and bazooka squads, even though bazooka squads are squishy as hell, almost the same like Panzer Jaggers. In the end, bazookas will do much more damage against armor than Panzer Jaggers, and they would equally perform poorly against infantry units. So in the end, I'm gonna put them in C tier. So this is the definitive list of best anti-tank infantry units in the game. Leave a comment down below. Do you agree? What you would like to see next? And don't forget to subscribe. See you guys, and thank you.